Use these.
Where do they start at 4? Sure.
Okay.
Have you ever looked at a painting and wondered why it's considered fine art? A lot of the times, abstract painting, you look at it and you wonder how it got famous. You know, maybe you yourself could have done better, or it looks like it could have even been done by a 5-year-old. Well, a lot of the time, understanding an artist's life can help you understand his or her artwork, as opposed to looking at it without this information. This is very so much the case with Georgia O'Keeffe. She is one of the most famous women artists and is known for having revolutionized modern art, which means she paved the way for artists that came and have yet to come after her. They're very inspired by the type of painting she created. As stated by PBS Special about her, her ability to paint with such a high level of intimacy and stark precision is what she is known for, and why, as an artist myself, I kind of envy her. I just completed my teaching internship at Florida High this past spring, so I was required to do a lesson on her, and I have to admit myself, I wasn't that impressed with her artwork before I was required to research her, but after looking at the places she's been in her life and who she was, I respect her that much more. So what I would like to do is I'd like to take you through a little bit about her life, explain how her collections have changed over time and exemplify where she was at that point in her life, and also explain her own interest in her varied subject matter. So to begin, I'll tell you a little bit about Georgia O'Keeffe's life. Her entire life in some way, shape, or form is portrayed in her artwork. In the biography by Lori Lissell that I read, it said that from a very early age, she had declared to her family that she wanted to be an artist. So she attended a couple of art schools and lost interest because it didn't really satisfy her in the way that she wanted it to. So she took a break from art for about 10 years and went back to Columbia University, where she received really good instruction that helped push her in the areas that she needed it. So after she left Columbia, she kept in touch with a couple of friends that she had met there. This is how her work eventually ended up in New York City. One of her friends that she constantly communicated with through letters, she would send charcoal drawings that she completed because she just really liked creating art. This friend was so impressed by Georgia's ability and talent that she decided, unknown to Georgia, that she would send her artwork to a gallery in New York City which was owned by Alfred Stieglitz. He, if you aren't familiar with him, is a very famous photographer from this early 1900s and owns his own gallery. So when he received these drawings, he was so impressed that he put them up all over his gallery. People were so impressed with the talent that this unknown artist displayed that they started to make a lot of noise about it. So in the art world, it was going around that there was this awesome artist who was mislabeled as Georgia O'Keeffe because Alfred didn't understand that her name was actually Georgia and she was a woman. So when Georgia got word of this, she decided to take a trip to New York and see for herself the types of art that was being displayed in Alfred's gallery. When she got there, imagine her surprise when she realized that all of the artwork was hers, but not only that she was mislabeled as a man. So she left New York very mad and didn't want to talk to Stieglitz or her friend anymore. And over the process of 2 years, she realized that New York was where she needed to be to get her artwork out there. So with a little bit of help of being convinced by Alfred, she moved back up there and started to work side by side with him. So as they worked side by side, they got very, very close. He helped push her in the areas that she needed, and he helped her in his photography. So eventually they fell in love and they got married after 6 years. However, Stieglitz's eye for beauty eventually came between them, so after 20 years of working with each other, she walked in one day and found him with another woman photographing her in the same intimate way and saying the same things to her, so she decided to leave and travel to New Mexico. It was here that she was able to clear her head, and she stayed there for nearly the rest of her life. She never divorced Alfred because she loved him so much, but she was obviously really angry and spent most of her time out in New Mexico. So now I want to talk about the types of work that she created at each of these stages in her life. Georgia O'Keeffe's painting changed much throughout her life, as seen as the PBS documentation about her. She is most recognized for her flower still life paintings, and these she completed while she was living in New York with Alfred Stieglitz. He helped her focus on the energy and erotic tension that came about in them. She also created cityscapes while she was painting the flowers, This is interesting to me because they're completely different from each other. They're very geometric and simple and geometric. Her third most famous series of works comes from the end of her life when she was in the desert, Her Bones and Extreme Abstractions. She was able to play with the placement and size with a lot of these. I didn't understand some of her abstractions until I saw images of her house and things she was looking at, and that's what helped me be able to truly understand how she was an artist and how her paintings were relevant and kind of told a little about who she was and where she was in her life. Therefore, each of these different subject matters has relevance to her and where she was. In an interview I was able to watch of her discussing her work, I was able to hear firsthand what Georgia really thought about each of her chosen subject matter. Georgia explained her inspiration with cityscapes was obvious. She was living in New York City, and at that time she needed to take breaks and go out and see what was around there. So that's where those abstractions came from. Georgia also worked on her flowers at this time, if you remember, and even though she is often criticized for referencing the woman's body in most of her flower paintings, she also just wanted to capture the shape and color in them. She says that she can't control what others see in her work, but only her interest at that time in her life was. When she moved to Taos, she enjoyed taking long walks, and it was on these she became fascinated with picking up bones. She said that the bones were like the flowers of the desert. So in conclusion, there's more to her work than what simply meets the eye. After a closer look at an examination of her life, the different subject matters she chose, and her interest in each of these things, it becomes obvious there are reflections of her and where she was in each stage of her life. One of my favorite quotes I want to end with is, she says, "When I got to New Mexico, that was mine. As soon as I saw it was my country. I had never seen anything like it before, but it fitted me exactly. It's something that's in the air, it's just different. The sky is different, the stars are different, the wind is different. I shouldn't say too much about this because other people might get interested and I don't want them interested."